What is probable cause? And when does it matter if the police have probable cause or don't? You could have cases where the police arrest somebody without probable cause and it makes absolutely no difference in the case. And you can have a case where the police arrest without probable cause and it makes all the difference in the case. You see, probable cause has no impact on whether or not someone's guilty or not guilty. However, it does have significant impact on whether or not the evidence which is recovered from the defendant after an arrest without probable cause is admissible in the case. So let's take a DWI case, for example. Let's say someone's pulled over, let's say at a checkpoint, so they don't really have much evidence of driving. They take the person out of the car, and let's presume that the officer fails to establish that there was actually probable cause that the individual was intoxicated. He didn't ask them for a breathalyzer, he didn't really smell alcohol, didn't really see the classic indicia of intoxication. Now, this is obviously a hypothetical. I'd hope that the police would not make an arrest in that situation. But let's assume that they did, that the police pulled someone over at a checkpoint, didn't really see any clues of intoxication, arrested that person without probable cause because they didn't really have enough evidence to arrest them, and then brought them back to the station to submit to the breath test. Let's assume the person submitted to the breath test at that point, and the breath test actually returned a 0.08 or higher, meaning the breath test showed that the person was intoxicated. In that case, if the police failed to establish probable cause, then the breath test that took place after the arrest would be suppressed. So it's not that the case gets dismissed just because there was no probable cause, but any evidence that's recovered as what they call the fruit of the poisonous tree, any evidence that's recovered after the unlawful seizure, after the unlawful arrest, would be suppressed and can't be used against you. So in this particular case, like a DWI, if the breath test gets suppressed, then that cannot be used against you. Now, that same logic applies to, let's just say, when an officer pulls you over. Now, an officer doesn't need probable cause to arrest you to pull you over, but it needs a lower standard. It either needs reasonable suspicion that a crime is committed, meaning they think that this car is a getaway driver from a robbery, or probable cause that there's a vehicle and traffic law violation, like speeding or failing to signal. If the officer doesn't have that basis, if an officer pulls you over for absolutely no reason, again, that doesn't mean that the subsequent case gets dismissed, but it does mean that any evidence that's recovered after that unlawful stop. So that would be even if the cop, when he pulls you over, he sees that you're slurring your words and you can't even stand straight. If he didn't have the right basis to pull you over in the first place, then all the evidence that's recovered subsequent gets thrown out. Now, most oftentimes, if there's not enough evidence to support the crime, if you throw out that evidence, then that can be a strong factor to get the case dismissed. So again, probable cause has to do with whether or not evidence is admitted or not, but not necessarily has to do with whether or not a case is thrown out or not.